The wedding I never dreamed I wanted. The next morning, Dad's condition was grave. He had deteriorated so much that the doctors did not believe he would survive through the next evening, even on life support. I needed my father with me when I got married. I didn't want it. I needed it. It was so important to me, I was willing to sacrifice much desired tradition and festivities. I'd been mentally planning my wedding day since I was a little girl, beginning with having a husband and twins in the board game Life. This was never within those dreams. This wasn't like my royal wedding book that Dad had sent me as a young girl, even drenched with water. As I walked in my cream-sheath wedding gown towards my future husband, I felt every nerve in my body call to attention. This was not the aisle I had envisioned in all of my childhood dreams. The walls of the ICU seemed to funnel the intense emotional heat and made the space feel even smaller. The doctors in scrubs were staring at beeping cell phones while hustling from room to room. They did not notice my big moment in life. There was no epic grand entrance as the church fell silent, gazing upon a gorgeous bride-to-be. There was no photographer snapping pictures, no guests grinning, no small giggles or admiring whispers. There was no booming church organ welcoming the bride, just the thumping of my heart within my chest. Instead, there was the squeaking and droning of the rubber wheels of crash carts on linoleum, snaking through rooms and echoing throughout the hospital. The pungent odor of alcohol and disinfectant hung heavy in the air, a far cry from the sweet fragrance of a bridal bouquet, but I didn't have one. My knees were wobbling beneath me, and my stomach was filled with butterflies. My walk to remember seemed continual, like a hallway to perpetuity. Rounding a corner, I saw Christopher standing right next to my father. I felt my fears evaporate as if they were mere wisps of smoke. He had a mischievous, boyish grin, and he nervously but excitedly adjusted his tie. He winked at me with approval. Directly beyond his right shoulder was a picturesque view of Pikes Peak through a sizable window. On his suit lapel, he wore my father's Air Force Squadron pin. He honestly seemed to glow, to radiate, and all of my anxiety melted away when I saw him. I felt the most incredible sense of joy, coupled with a wave of peace, and I smiled right back. I closed my eyes and tried hard to memorize this bittersweet moment. The hospital halogen lights and white flush of the room made it feel taciturn and cold. Dad was virtually tied to the bed, tubes going down his throat and nose. His hair was oily, but combed to the side. His eyes were closed, and he was very pale, his skin like tissue paper. His chest still moved up and down, his heart rate as continual as a metronome, and that symbolized hope. On the far side of the bed, a thick-set woman with blonde hair and Snoopy scrubs was adjusting the controls on his infusion pump. I studied Chris again. His eyes were blazing, and I flushed. With one hand, he handed me a gorgeous bouquet of long-stemmed roses. "You need a bouquet," he said, through his comforting smile. He took my right hand in his, and my nervous smile made the corners of my mouth wobble. Even during this bittersweet moment, he was so charming and gentle. "You look so beautiful," he whispered, each declaration a staccato. I involuntarily moaned as he reached up and stroked my chin with his thumb. I felt like I was falling in love with him all over again. I also held one of my father's limp hands. Glancing back towards Christopher, his eyes were even more serious and red-rimmed, but still warm and inviting. He felt like a wall holding me up. He is perfect for me. This is the perfect love I always needed, and I knew it, among many other reasons, because I felt no fear. Abruptly, I realized that the preacher was speaking directly to me. He was asking if I took Christopher to be my lawfully wedded husband. I looked down at our clasped hands, then up at Christopher, my reward. He was regarding me curiously, his thumb sweeping over my fingers soothingly. I made devoted doe eyes and started nibbling on my bottom lip. His charismatic gaze was steady. In a breathy voice, I said, "I do."